working on a Jelly Roll quilt. I'm using a herringbone pattern, and I thought I'd do a quick tutorial on it. Today I'm just going to work on cutting everything out. So to do this, you're going to need two different, some facing this way and some facing this way. So I'll kind of show you how I go about doing that. So right here, I've got a stack of, I don't know, 5 strips, Jelly Roll strips, and I've stacked them up on top of each other. So what I'm using is a 60-degree cut for this side. So I just line it up, and I've got, see how there's a little bit of selvage here, so I'm making sure that that's going to be cut off. And I'm placing my ruler from the point along the 60-degree line, and I'll just cut right there. Okay, so there's a couple ways that you can do this next part. So the first way that I figured out how to do it was to just slide up my ruler. And I want these from this point right here to the point that's going to be angled. I want it to be 8 inches. So what I did is I found my 8-inch mark up here, and I found where it crossed, the 60-degree line crossed, and I set my fabric on that. So I had this end over here, and I tried to keep it even like this, and then this end I had it at this point right here, and that's where I cut. So that's one way to do it. Then after I was doing that for a while, I found another way that I think is a little easier. If you have a ruler like this that has a 60-degree mark on it. So what I did is I just lined it up along the bottom with this point at the very end. And then I'm going to use this ruler and the 8-inch mark right here to do it. So on the ruler, there's different lines. There's a 60-degree line, there's 45, and there's 30. So I'm using the 60-degree line. So what you're going to want to do is find that 60-degree line, and it's going to go straight up. And I like to line it up, since I'm doing a 7-inch cut, I like to line this up along the 7 and then move it up or down this way until this edge right here starts at the 8. And then I'll just cut right there. And it's pretty stinking easy to do it that way. So I'll just show you one more time. We have this 60-degree mark, and I'm going to line it so it's straight up on this line right here on the 7. And then you just move this up and down until the edge of the ruler is at the 8-inch mark right here. And I'll make sure that that stays straight, and that's at the edge, and then that's where you cut the line. So I'll finish these, and then I'll show you how to do the opposite cuts. Okay, so we have all these that are facing this direction. Now we need some that have the angles in the opposite direction like this. So what you do is you just have your fabric and you just flip it so it's the right side is down, and you do the exact same thing. But then when you flip it up, the angles will be in the opposite direction to make your herringbone quilt. just walk you through it one more time. Starting on the end, you trim off the end at the 60-degree mark on the ruler or on the mat. Then you're going to take your little ruler, line it up so the 60-degree mark is vertical, and then line up this on the 8 and make your cuts. And so then when you flip them back up like this, the angles are the opposite of those other ones that we cut. So then we can just line them up into a herringbone pattern, just like that. And of course we'll do some rearranging of the fabric so we get a look that we like, but that's how we cut them. So now I'm going to show you how to put together the pieces. So we'll take our stack of fabric here. This one is for row 3. I've done a couple rows already. I like to keep the tag on. One, it helps me know which end's the top, and the other reason is then I can remember which row is which later when it comes to sewing them together. So we'll take 2 pieces. And this is the top piece, and then this piece is going to go here. So we're going to flip this so it's right sides together, and then we're going to sew along right here. But to line it up, you're going to want to, you see how this comes over just a little bit right there? And then on this end, the white end comes over just a little bit. You want to line it up so it's about the same distance on each side. So then we'll sew right along here. Okay, so we sewed it together. This is the top. We'll grab our next piece from the stack. I like to kind of line it up, make sure it's going the correct direction. Flip it up, and again, those ends need to overlap just a little bit, the same length on each side. Okay, so now I have a piece that's kind of darker, so hopefully it will be easier to see how I line it up. So I take the fabric, here's my piece right here, I'm going to flip it up. You can tell when I turn it over like this, there's a little bit of this poking out, and that's how you want it to be on both sides. So one side, the colorful part will poke out. On the other side, it will be the white piece that pokes out a little bit. So you want to just make sure that both sides are even. Doesn't have to be too precise, but just kind of line it up so that there's a little bit of a gap. Now, the reason why you want to do this, let me show you. This is the first one that I did. If you can tell, when I did it, the very first seam that I did, I lined it up exactly from point to point, like this, so that the point was exactly where it started. And this is how it turns out if you do that. It leaves a little bit of a gap here. You can tell. And so when you line it up the way I'm showing you, then it lines up perfectly right here. So another thing I wanted to mention, I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I've got my little piece of tape here that I've measured from the where the needle is over 1/4 inch, and I use this as my guide. Now you can buy presser feet that are specifically designed. They have a guide for you to do that. I don't have one of those, so this is an easy way to have a 1/4 inch guide without having to go out and buy something. I couldn't find one for my machine. So also I like to just back stitch just a little bit at the front and the end just to secure the stitch. It's going to be sewn in when we sew them together, so it's not completely necessary, but it doesn't hurt to just do it a little bit, especially since there's so many pieces. Okay, so I've got all my strips sewn together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to press the seams. So flip it to the back side, and everything needs to be pressed towards the color and away from the white, because if you press it towards the white, then you'll be able to see your seams a little bit through. So I like to use a little bit of water. You could use the steam on your iron. And just go down and press the seam. So just put your iron down on the white and just kind of press the seams away. Okay, so I've got 2 strips here, 2 of my rows completed, and we're going to pin them together so that we can sew them together. So we're going to put right sides together. So because we pressed away from the white on every seam, then they should nestle right together, and then we can just stick a little pin in. Just make sure that all of the seams line up together, and we'll pin them together. Okay, so I've pinned all the seams, and now we're going to sew it together. I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm removing the pins as I come to them. Okay, so I've got it all sewn together, the 2 rows, and now we're just going to press the seam to one side, and we'll take a look at what it looks like. So it doesn't really matter which direction you go at this point. Just pick a side and press the seam that direction. Now I've decided that I want to kind of sew the rows together as I complete them. You could do all of your rows first and then sew the rows together, or you can do it the way I'm doing it. It really doesn't matter. It's just personal preference. I chose to do it this way just so that all the pieces get put together as quickly as possible. It's less likely to lose the order that they're supposed to go in. The kids mess around with the pins, things like that. Okay, so let's flip it over and we'll kind of take a look at what it looks like. So there's our first 2 rows sewn together, so I will just continue. I've already sewn the 3rd row together. I'll sew it on, and then I'll just continue to sew my pieces together until I make a row, and then add the row to the quilt.